Let's away now to Barcelona and the Formula One qualifiers.
corner, but still, the car, look, he's still having to fight the car to get the power down. And once again, had to steer away from the corner there as he turned in. Had the steering wheels pointed in the wrong direction there momentarily. So he still hasn't got this car absolutely perfectly sorted out. And there's no circuit in the world where that shows up more than Barcelona. One fast, long corner leading into yet another fast, long corner. You cannot overdrive a car around there. You cannot pick it up and carry it too much. It's got to be with you. It's too high a speed, then there's no space to get away with it. That's 7/10 slower than Alesi was this morning. You can see he's already backed off. They will all be running 4 runs of 3 laps. An out as ever, 1 flying and an in.
Well, this is the circuit. We had some rain at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago, but my goodness, when it rains here, it really, really rains. We were expecting it to be wet today. It hasn't been. You're looking at Rubens Barrichello, who led so well at Silverstone, 3rd fastest this morning. But one of the wettest races I have ever seen was here a few years ago, which was magnificently dominated by Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari in 1998. Appalling weather conditions, and he absolutely cruised home. So 1 out so far. You're looking at John Alesi in the Prost coming in. Here's a replay.
Yes, that's what I was telling you about, where Alesi turns in the corner, look, and immediately has to turn back out again as the back end tries to step out, even with a simple downshift going in there. So still the aerodynamic centre of pressure moving around underneath that car as Alesi takes to the pit lane. They practice the pit in here very heavily. It's quite a long run before they get to the speed line, which is now. You can see the black skid marks after that, where they've all been practicing, and down to 60 kilometres an hour just in qualifying, 80 kilometres, 50 miles an hour during the race. It's a long pit lane at 60 k's an hour.
And that looks like one of the Jordans going out as Alesi comes in. You just see the flash of yellow along the bottom of your screen. Didn't see which one it was. We'll soon identify it for you. And it's Heinz Harald Frentzen, sat next to him at dinner last night. Very nice chap. He was very cool, calm and collected as ever. Left fairly early to get a decent night's rest. And the Jordans now seem to have overcome the gearbox problem which has plagued them through this season. Frentzen was 7th fastest this morning, just about a second off the pace.
I didn't get a chance to find out why he broke down this morning and missed the end of the session, Murray. Did you get any information on that?
No, I'm sorry, Martin. I didn't. He just stopped. I watched him while it happened. He just stopped and rolled off the circuit. I don't know whether he was low on fuel, but it didn't look like anything very serious to me. Heinz Harald Frentzen then from Germany, one of the 4 German drivers in this race. Nick Heidfeld, Heinz Harald Frentzen and the Schumacher brothers, of course, in respectively Jordan, Ferrari and the Prost cars and the Williams.
Yes, when I was driving in Formula 1 many years, there were no German drivers at all. And of course, at the moment, they've been very much at the sharp end and dominating on occasions. When I first came into Formula 1, there were 13 Italian drivers in Formula 1, and now there's just 2. It really is pretty much driven by where the money is coming from with regard to how many particular nationals are in Formula 1 at any time, but it does swap around quite quickly.
Well, while the Jordan is out on the track, it's worth registering that the Arrows team, that's David Coulthard, the Arrows team going extremely well here after all the work that they did on the new car for this year in 1999. Pedro de la Rosa, that you saw talking to Martin about the circuit, was an excellent 8th fastest this morning in the top 10, and Jos Verstappen, his teammate, was only just out of it, 11th fastest. Now, Frentzen is on his quick lap.
Yes, it was an electrical problem this morning, apparently, as to why Frentzen stopped out on the racetrack. So you were right, Murray, it wasn't anything too serious, but it would have been very serious had it been Grand Prix day. So already Frentzen way ahead of Jean Alesi's one and only flying lap earlier on in the session. And coming now into what must be 7 and 8. Always riding the curve there, trying to get the power on. Now you're blind over the crest. He launches this Jordan in. I noticed it earlier in the lap too when you were talking, Murray. Now, big problem that Cancer just came out of. If they run wide there, they kick dust up onto the track. It's the same in turn 13, the last corner, and I believe that's why a lot of the drivers will want to get an early banker run in, as you put it, Murray, because you can't. It's a long track. It's not going to rubber in much more now with just 12 laps apiece to go at. So they need to make sure somebody doesn't run wide and drag a lot of dirt back onto the racetrack. Just on the exit of this corner is always a place that's done.
So he goes fastest, a second faster than Jean Alesi, but the significant thing is that he's just 0.3 of a second slower than he went this morning. And I'm sorry to keep harping on this temperature thing, but the fact is that it is still going up, as a result of which you see David Coulthard getting in the car, you've seen Michael Schumacher putting on his helmet. It looks to me, with the sky overhead very clear and very blue, as you watch Marc Genet in the excellent Ford-powered Spanish Minardi, it looks to me as though we'll be going to see quite a few drivers out on the track before it gets even hotter.
That's the never-ending turn 3 we showed you, and the car's sort of almost doing a wall of death around the outside by the time they've understeered enough through the middle of the corner, and you're just hanging on, just hoping you've got just enough grip to hang on, and it's a relief to be straightening up on that white line. Now he's down into 5. It all looks very calm, so I'm assuming that Genet is on an in-lap.
Well, here's an excellent bit of news. I hope it keeps this way. Johnny Herbert, who was only 13th fastest this morning in the Jaguar, admittedly early days, only 10 minutes gone, he's on a very, very quick lap, which is going to take him, I believe, into provisional pole position, but with some 50 minutes still to go. And there is Johnny Herbert in the very distinctive Jaguar. I was talking to Neil Reslow, who's now taken over control of the team, and he was telling me that they think they've got the reliability problems bugged, and they're going to look now for speed. They've got it here at the moment. Johnny Herbert, second fastest to Frentzen.
Yes, but that's a disappointing time, a 23.2. That's going to be well over a second and a half off of the ultimate pole position. The Jaguar, in my view, is the most beautiful car on the racetrack in Formula One, but it certainly, sadly, is not the fastest at the moment.
Frentzen fastest with 49 minutes still to go. Johnny Herbert second. Ricardo Zonta in the BAR is third fastest, but very disappointing this morning, only 21st. Jean Alesi, that you've already seen, fourth. Marc Genet, fifth quickest. So 5 out from the 22 who hopes to start this race. A lot still to come onto the track. And let me remind you all again that in order to qualify for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix, you've got to be within 107%. Johnny Herbert's got a loose wing end plate. Look, you can see it flapping about. It tucks itself underneath the wing. Something's broken off. And now Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR is on a quick lap.
I think it's the camera mount, isn't it, that's come off. I think Johnny's probably rumbled across the curve and lost the camera mount. It's hanging on by a cable, and he will be in the pit lane this time. Hopefully it'll stay with him until he gets all the way, and that's unusual to see, in fact, but I'm pretty sure that's the nose camera that we've shown you recently.
Well, it's still Heinz Harald Frentzen, the quickest in the Jordan, but as Martin has said, there's a long way to go and a long time to go. Check on the track temperature, 28 degrees. It is still going up. And Johnny is wheeled backwards into the garage. Let's have a look at that wing. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Martin. Well spotted. That's it. It is the camera mount, which has broken free as he went over the rumble strip, just hanging on by the cable. And here is Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR. Faster than he'd been in the first sector, fastest of all in the second sector, 0.2 of a second inside Heinz Harald Frentzen's time. This was the man who at the British Grand Prix was running well in the points until he struck a problem at the end. And this BAR with the new Honda engine is a very, very different motor car to last year's in its debut year. And Villeneuve moves up into provisional pole position, 22.3. That is 1/10 of a second faster than Frentzen, but 1/10 of a second is enough.
A lot of speculation in the press and certainly some activity behind the scenes in Formula One with Villeneuve and his future driving contract. Some people have views that he's already moved. Interesting to see, but I think there'll be some quite early action this year on the driver contract front, that's for sure.
Yep, Villeneuve is rumoured to have moved, as you heard earlier on from Jim Rosenthal when he was probing, metaphorically, Patrick Head. There's even rumours that Jenson Button has signed for Williams next year. Everybody in Britain will be hoping that's true. And Ralf Schumacher, the man I was talking about as being the sensation of this meeting, in my opinion, so far, is really flying in the Williams BMW with 46 minutes still to go. He's gone through the first sector fastest of all. Here he is in the very distinctively liveried Williams BMW, which reminds us of the year that Nelson Piquet drove for Brabham with BMW power with exactly that livery. Funnily enough, no BMW round wall showing dramatically on the outside of the car. It's on Schumacher's helmet. Now, how is he going? He's going to be going into provisional pole position, I do believe, and the answer is yes, he does. The first man under 22, 1 minute 22, with that time of 1 minute 21.823, and already, just 13 minutes into the session, we've had 3 different men heading it. Frentzen in the Jordan, and then Villeneuve in the BAR, now Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, and we've still got Hakkinen to come out, Coulthard to come out, Barrichello and Michael Schumacher, and here is Barrichello, pole position at the British Grand Prix.
Yes, 1:21.8 there from Ralf Schumacher on current provisional pole is faster than Hakkinen's pole of last year. We used to do 1 minute 17s around there when we had decent tyres and a decent amount of downforce, and the cars were significantly more drivable than they are now. But nonetheless, that's still fantastic progress from the Williams team. Ralf last year did a 23.3, so Williams have found 1.5 seconds since last year already, and that's including installing a whole new engine in the car, Murray.
Yeah, and they've got a new second-generation engine. I was talking to Dr. Mario Tyson just before I came into the box, and he told me they've got a new second-generation engine coming along, like the Mercedes-Benz, like the Honda. It'll be even better than the current one, and Rubens Barrichello looks as though he's going to be provisional pole position holder number 4 in a few seconds' time. 44 minutes still to go, and Rubens Barrichello is faster in the first and second sectors than he's been, and anybody's been for that matter so far. Coming down to the last corner, turn 13, he can see the grid unfolding before him. Over the line he goes, Rubens Barrichello, 1:21.770, and that is the 4th provisional pole position holder, and we've got more to come, no doubt about that.
James has some news for us down in the pits.
Yeah, just reflecting on what you were talking about a second ago, Martin, with Ralph's time. And it's in fact a second slower than he did here last week, which is some indication of just how hot it is here this afternoon. But on Rubens Barrichello, I'm told, I was speaking to him just before, and he said apparently Ross Brawn has been really good to him this weekend. He's put his arm around his shoulder after the 2 disappointments that Rubens has suffered, hydraulic failures while leading the race at Silverstone and as well in Brazil. Apparently Ross has said to him that he's already done more for Ferrari in 4 races than Irvine did in 4 years. Praise indeed.
That'll please Eddie, but now Jacques Villeneuve, that you just saw as a provisional pole position holder in the pit lane there, is down to 4th fastest, because Jarno Trulli in the Jordan has gone ahead of him. His teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 5th place. Barrichello, Ralf Schumacher, Trulli, Villeneuve, Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Eddie Irvine is out on the track in the Jaguar, just completing the lap now. Irvine is 5th fastest, faster than Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yes, the reigning world champion, you saw him, Mika Hakkinen, coming onto the track. I think Coulthard's on the track too. Both McLarens out at the same time, which I always think is silly when teams do that, because if one goes off it spoils the lap for the other, or if somebody else goes off altogether and the red flags come out, then both cars lose out at the same time. But anyway, that I know in the McLaren team they're free to run their own individual policy in each car with regard to when they want to go out for traffic, etc, etc. But anyway, both of the McLarens on the racetrack. Jenson Button currently on a good lap too, that's going to pump him somewhere around Eddie Irvine in 5th or 6th place when he comes over the line. Now, we picked him up now through the last 2 corners. Jensen, this is such a tough corner, this last one. It's brilliant fun, but it certainly takes some hanging on to. And Button goes 7th, yes, just behind Frentzen. So 22.6 for Jensen. Button, Ralph Schumacher, his teammate, up in 2nd at the moment on a 1:21.8.
Excellent that for Jensen Button. He was 10th fastest this morning. He's 7th fastest at the present moment. 0.8 of a second off Rubens Barrichello's fastest time so far. And it's the first time in sort of competitive conditions that Jensen Button has driven here on this Barcelona circuit. Yes, he's had a lot of testing miles like everybody else, but when you get the pressure of actually having to qualify or race, it can be a very different thing. How is Mika Häkkinen doing? Well, the Finn now is on what he hopes is going to be the lap that moves him up into provisional pole position, but he'll have to do better than he's doing at the present moment. 0.04 of a second off the pace. He can make that up, of course, in the remaining 2 sectors and more.
Now, there's a few people around the paddock, just a few, keeping a close eye on Mika Häkkinen, because he was reasonably lacklustre during the Grand Prix at Silverstone and has reminded us very much of Spa last year, where Coulthard got away and Mika almost seemed to give up on it. And he's not really been at the sharp end of the pace all through free practice and this morning, Mika. Now, we all know he is, of all of the drivers on the track, and I include Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen is the one that can hook up the hot lap. But it's curious, he seems just a little bit downbeat. But this lap is going to bury him, I think, a 21.5, 21.6 if he can just storm this last corner. And is going to put him, I'm sure he's going to be on the front row of the grid with this. Let's have a look. Has Mika Häkkinen done it? Yes, he has. 21.3. So a good end to the lap for Mika Häkkinen. And that's answered one of the early doubts anyway, hasn't it?
Yeah, but David Coulthard is right behind him, and David Coulthard was faster still in the first sector.
Yes, I think Coulthard
coming into the pits. Yeah, he's aborted the lap.
Yes.
Why would he have done that, Mark? He was fastest of all in the first sector.
I was just about to say, but he's not had a very good middle sector, Murray, because the time flashed up, and I think he knew that. Either he's got a little drama or he caught some traffic or something. So I think Coulthard knew the lap was no good, so aborted to save the tyres. And no time yet for David Coulthard.
Well, one thing we haven't said so far, is that the man who is going against the grain, literally, in terms of tyre choice, is Michael Schumacher. Bridgestone, as usual, have brought 2 dry weather compound tyres here, the medium compound and the soft. Virtually everyone has opted for the soft, except, notably, Michael Schumacher, who's on the medium and harder compound, as are the 2 Arrows drivers, Pedro de la Rosa and Jos Verstappen. And Michael Schumacher has yet to come, well, he's done 1 lap, actually. He hasn't done a full timed lap yet. We're riding with Pedro de la Rosa, who is 9th quickest at the moment in the Arrows, and he was 8th quickest this morning. This car, dramatically different from the one they had last year. It's got the Supertech engine as opposed to Arrow's own engine in 1999. The engine is a lot better, the car is a lot better. Pedro de la Rosa, the Spaniard, he's in his home country and he's now got a season's experience behind him, and he's not happy with that lap because he turns in. 38 minutes to go. Mika Häkkinen, 0.4 of a second faster than Barrichello, just over 0.4 quicker than Ralph Schumacher. Trulli is 4th, Villeneuve is 5th, and Irvine is 6th. News from James Allen.
Just what David Coulthard didn't want. Something is definitely afoot. At the moment, he's still sitting in his race car. The mechanics are looking around the back of it. He looks pretty calm, but Ron Dennis, the team boss, is looking quite agitated. Obviously, he wanted David very badly to get a number on the board here as early as possible to steady him down after his extraordinary aeroplane accident in midweek. But the mechanics are currently preparing the spare car for Coulthard. So there is some kind of gremlin at the back of this race car of Coulthard's, and I'll keep on top of it and let you know what happens.
Now we're watching Michael Schumacher, who's on his quick lap. He's done his out lap. He's on the 3rd of 12 laps that he will be doing this afternoon. Out of turn 2 into that long 180-degree turn 3, going about 145 miles an hour as he exits it. Builds up to 170 miles an hour, then down into 3rd gear. As you can see, he's faster than Mika Häkkinen in the first sector, goes round turn 4, a double 90, now down into the left-hander turn 5, starts dropping downhill a bit now towards turn 7, which is the lowest point on this circuit. It's actually got far more gradient than it would appear to have looking at television. Now he's climbing up again towards Campsa, the 5th gear, 120-mile-an-hour corner, and he's completed half a lap, and he's still 8/100ths of a second inside Mika Häkkinen's time. I remind you, the pole position front row of the grid here for the Spanish Grand Prix is of vital importance, and Michael Schumacher last year was not there.
Well, this Ferrari's got very, very good basic speed around now, because this is not a particularly good lap from Michael Schumacher. 2 corners where he didn't really get to the apex at all, and I think that's cost him that provisional pole at the moment. Turn 4, he was nowhere near the apex he wanted, and certainly the same through turn 7. But Michael's first lap on the board, he's in 2nd place. We'll be back very shortly.
33.5 minutes to go, all quiet on the Western Front. Nearly everybody is in the pits. Just Ralf Schumacher is on the track. Jarno Trulli is out on the track. Johnny Herbert, Heidfeld are out. So that will be advantageous to them. Comparatively little traffic as in comes Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen is still quickest.
Yes, while you were away in the break, nothing significant happened, certainly visually, but Michael Schumacher elected to do 2 flying laps, so he's now restricted himself this afternoon to just 3 runs. At least that's going to give him a total of 6 flying laps, whereas the 4-run solution only gives you 4 flying laps, but each time with a fresh set of tyres. Michael obviously thinks he's got a chance of getting a faster lap of the 2nd lap. Well, he did go faster on the 2nd lap, only by 1/10 of a second, and did not improve his grid position. He just moved slightly closer to Mika Häkkinen.
I had someone who should know saying to me, he's the only one in the field who's got the brains to think of that.
Well, he's certainly a very mentally driven person, is our Michael, and he's got good people around him as well to help him try and think outside the circle, I think, is one of those unpleasant expressions people use, or a bit of lateral thinking, and hey, how can we do this slightly differently and get an advantage?
32 minutes to go, and we have had 5 different people in provisional pole position already. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Jacques Villeneuve, Ralf Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello, and Mika Häkkinen, who is still there. James, what's the news?
Reflecting on what you were saying there, what Martin was saying, in fact, my information is that Michael's brother Ralf was also very seriously contemplating running the harder tyre today. They've obviously been talking a lot since last week's test coming here this weekend, and Ralf has hardly used the softer tyres throughout this weekend, but at last minute, I think obviously someone at Williams, or maybe the lap times that Jensen was pulling, made Ralf decide to switch to the softer tyre. But it's obviously a ruse that Michael's had up his sleeve. A quick update for you on the McLaren situation. Coulthard is out of his race car. There does seem to be something wrong with it, and he is switching to the spare car. There's an atmosphere of controlled panic amongst the mechanics and the engineers. Coulthard staying calm, though. Obviously, he's got his eyes focused on the main prize.
Yes, unfortunately for Coulthard, that T-car is not allowed to be used at any other time until qualifying starts. So it's about to turn its first wheel of the weekend. Not what he wanted at all. Maybe for his 2nd or 3rd run he could have used it ideally, but that's going to be a totally fresh experience for Coulthard, but I guess he's had a few of those this week.
Well, just about halfway through the 1-hour session, and Fisichella has still not qualified. He's out now on the track, and I've little doubt that he will qualify, because he went fairly well this morning. 12th fastest in the Benetton, which is shortly to become the Renault team sponsored by Benetton, as opposed to the Benetton team sponsored by Benetton. That'll be the year after next. You've heard from Mike Gascoigne that he's going there as the technical director, and Flavio Briatore, who is in charge, is casting his experienced eye all round the paddock, looking for good people. Plenty of them, some time to go yet before it's Renault. And now you're watching the Prost of Nick Heidfeld, who was actually faster than his more experienced teammate, John Alesi, the most experienced man in Formula One these days, Alesi, this morning, that is. Nick Heidfeld, the German Formula 3000 champion of 1999. He's currently 15th fastest, but he's much slower on this lap than he was on his previous quick lap. The top 10 so far, with 29.5 minutes to go. Häkkinen and Schumacher, row 1. Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher, row 2. Trulli in the Jordan and Frentzen, his teammate, row 3. Jacques Villeneuve and Eddie Irvine, that's a good one, in the Jaguar. I think the highest the Jaguar have had a starter this year was 7th for Eddie Irvine. And the 5th row of the grid, Jenson Button in the 2nd Williams is there, 1.2 seconds off Häkkinen's pace, accompanied by Fisichella, who's just moved up to that 10th position. So everybody is safely in, but David Coulthard is 22nd and last at the present moment as we look into the McLaren pit. He's only done 2 laps, he's got 10 laps to go, he's got 28.5 minutes to do them, so there's not a problem there, but it would be nice to see him out on the track very soon. He really, really deserves to be there.
Watching the stuff flutter past the door there of the McLaren garage and dust and debris, the drivers are always talking about the wind being critical around here, because a lot of high-speed corners at some point, necessarily with a racetrack, you end up back where you started. You've got to go through whichever way the wind is blowing. You've got to turn through it. It unsettles the aerodynamics of these cars quite easily, and the wind speed has doubled to 2.1 meters per second since the beginning of the session. And as soon as you get any kind of wind speed around here, the drivers start whinging of the car's not doing what it should, as Barrichello drops a wheel into the dirt in 7 and the Arrow stalls.
And the track temperature starts to creep up again. It had gone down a little and it's now back up to 28 degrees, which is as high as it's been this afternoon. So Häkkinen still quickest. McLaren, and Häkkinen of course is Mr. Pole Position these days. He's got 24 of them, which is actually more than Michael Schumacher, 1 more than Michael Schumacher. We're watching the British Grand Prix pole position holder, the 3rd in his career, Rubens Barrichello, as he too aborts the lap. That's his 6th lap. He's had 6, he's got 6 to come. He comes into the pit lane in the Ferrari, hits the pit lane speed limiter, which now operates off the front wheels as a result of the revised electronic regulations, and turns in.
And he's forwarded into the weighbridge area where he will see a red light. If he passes that, he's disqualified from the weekend. And Verstappen, you see now, he's just gone up to 10th place, has Jos Verstappen, with a 122.6. Barrichello in the weighbridge area on a 121.7. As I've said to you before, the big drama of going in there is none of your mechanics are allowed in there. It's like a parc fermé. And you lose vital information on your tyre pressures, how the pressures are around the track, and they're still done in the old-fashioned way on a Formula 1 car, despite the technology of a pressure gauge. The tyres are filled with nitrogen and not normal air, as Verstappen drops a wheel in the dirt. That's what I was talking to you about earlier on, dragging dirt onto the racetrack. They use nitrogen to make sure there's no vapour in it. Normal air has a content of vapour, and as soon as the tyres start running at 90 degrees centigrade, of course, the air starts to expand if it's got any vapour in it. But you lose that vital piece of information when you're pushed into the weighbridge area, as Verstappen is about to spoil what I think is the outlap, actually, of his teammate De La Rosa.
Well, there's 5 different constructors who've got cars in the top 9 at the present moment, covered by 1.2 seconds. And that little margin is very significant. And news from Louise Goodman.
I've been down at Jaguar checking out this business with the camera which we saw falling off Johnny's car. I've had a look at the front wing. The mountings are totally sheared off. I've never seen that happen before. The camera has been running that position on other cars, but interestingly, it's never been running that position on the Jaguar before. No signs of Johnny hitting anything, so I can only assume it must have been something to do with the vibrations in the front wing of that Jaguar, but it's an interesting one anyway.
Thank you for that candid camera report there, Louise. And we're back on track now with De La Rosa heading towards turn 4 from his overhead camera. And you get in very early into 4, then the car just starts walking its way towards the outside. You're having to correct the slide a little bit, and there's the line to tell you that's far enough, thank you. In the rain, we've all been through that gravel track so many times, because you just can't stop into what looks like a very silly and easy little corner, into the little hill there of 7, bring it in early. Now get on the power, because you can cheat and go across the curb and a little bit of grass. And this is Camp. So De La Rosa talked us through this corner, and it tucks in just at the end, look. And now you can quite easily head down into what is a huge stopping area. The car's got tremendous deceleration there. Then you just got to stay inside and feed as much power as you can get in. You can see him balancing the throttle with the steering wheel and catapult your way then into 11, and 12 falls away from you. Let's see if he lifts the throttle at all. No, he did not, did he? And then down into the famous 13, and we've gone off board now, unfortunately. I'd love to have gone through there with De La Rosa. He goes over the line, and he is in 9th place.
Excellent, excellent lap. Very interesting situation as De La Rosa moves into the top 10. Last year, his first year in Formula One, he didn't have much competition from his own team. The Japanese driver Tora Takagi, who has retired from Formula One and gone back to Formula Nippon in Japan, was his teammate. But now he's got Jos Verstappen, the Dutchman, the very experienced and aggressive Dutchman, in the team with him. And Verstappen is 11th at the quickest moment at the moment. De La Rosa is 9th, and between them there is just 1/100th of a second as Mika Häkkinen crosses the line. That is into his 6th lap now, so he's done, or will have done, his half his allocation. They're allowed a maximum of 12 laps. He's fastest so far. Michael Schumacher significantly is still in the pit lane, and he's only done 4 out of 12 laps.
Well, either the sound is not dubbed on the picture correctly here by the Spanish TV company, or Häkkinen was still busy shifting down in the middle of turn 1. I suspect he hadn't got any such problems because, as you can see, he's very, very fast so far. So Häkkinen then through 5. Fantastic traction for him coming out of there then. It's a sweeper into this next section where you've just got to be smooth. You must not brake too late, and then over the blind crest at Campsa. And bumpy on the exit. There's the dust I keep telling you about. They drag back on the racetrack. And now heading towards the end of the lap, Murray.
Well, he is as quick as the previous quickest man through that second sector, notwithstanding just putting a wheel at the back off the track and kicking up a few stones. I don't know that he's going to be quicker on this lap. He's 1/10 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher at the present moment. With 22 minutes to go, he's not happy. Into the pit lane, aborts the lap. Mika Häkkinen still fastest. Michael Schumacher second. Rubens Barrichello third. Ralf Schumacher a superb 4th. Trulli, Frentzen, Villeneuve, Irvine. 9th is De La Rosa, 10th is Button.
Yes, David Coulthard at the back of the grid at the moment. We think they found Coulthard goes 3rd. Coulthard out of view of the cameras on a 21.5. We think they found the fuel problem on his car. He was in the race car. So now they finally picked up Coulthard, but that's the end of his first hot lap as they were following Häkkinen into the pits. And David Coulthard up onto the second row of the grid. Just 0.2 of a second off a pole at this time. Michael Schumacher, as ever, seems to be between him and Häkkinen, who's currently on the pole.
People were saying to me, is David Coulthard going to be all right after that terrible, terrible air crash of his? And I said, yes, I'm quite sure he is. A, I'm positive that he will compete. B, of course, once you've got in the car and you're concentrating 101% on making it get round the circuit as fast as you possibly can, you have no thought for anything else, and you can't have any thought for anything else.
I'm told from a source that I trust implicitly that the father of one of the pilots of the air crash rang the McLaren team to send a message to say, we want David Coulthard on the pole position and go for it, which is a very nice thing to do.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for that, sir. And David Coulthard is 3rd fastest at the present moment. He's not going to improve on that lap. As you see, he runs wide. That's Mika Häkkinen running wide onto the rumble strip. But David Coulthard's challenge now as Michael Schumacher comes out of the garage with 20 minutes and 8 laps to go. Coulthard's challenge is to get on the front row of the grid and displace Michael Schumacher. Now, David Coulthard is not going to be content with 2nd position on the grid. The battle between him and Mika Häkkinen, for that pole position is just as intense as it is between any other drivers in the race. He's currently 3rd with Michael Schumacher that you're looking at 2nd. Mika Häkkinen in pole position, 20 minutes to go.
Yes, see, the difference, you may think, oh, well, Häkkinen would start a fraction ahead of Coulthard, or Coulthard a fraction ahead of Häkkinen, does it really matter? there's other aspects. As with anything in Formula 1, it's always more complicated than you think. Certainly in many teams, and in the McLaren team, would be different at Ferrari, because Schumacher would get the call on everything at all times. But you know, the fastest McLaren driver gets the choice of when he wants to stop in the race. He's got the clean side of the grid, he's got the nod into the first corner, I would say, in the unspoken word. So there are many issues as to which one of the teammates in many of these teams it affects them on race day much more than you might believe.
Well, Michael Schumacher approaching the start of his quick lap, hopefully from his point of view to move back into the pole position that he's already occupied this afternoon. Meantime, his teammate Rubens Barrichello is on his 6th lap. He's in 4th position. As we've come to expect these days, it's the 2 Ferraris and the 2 McLarens on the front 2 rows of the grid. The order in which they're going to be there is anybody's guess. Now, here is Michael Schumacher starting quick lap number 7. This is his 7th lap. The target in the first sector is on the left. Mika Häkkinen's time, 23.806 seconds out of turn 2, out of turn 3, into the long turn 3.
Yes, and Michael Schumacher still didn't make the apex into turn 1 that time, fighting the car, so he's getting near the limit. I think if he hooks one up, he's quite capable of sticking this on pole, but Michael definitely somewhere near his ragged edge. But look, it's a good first sector, 23.6, so but this is not where Häkkinen's been quick. It's that middle part, and particularly the end, where Häkkinen's been quick. But we know from Michael's earlier lap, he made a couple of small errors, and if he can collect those up and correct them, he's got a good chance, I think, of taking provisional pole. Up through Campsa, hard on the power, look, and absolutely no problems at all as Michael heads down to the big braking zone.
And he's chosen a good time because the temperature's coming down, and so is his lap time. Half a second inside Mika Häkkinen's time. This is going to be a meteoric lap. Last year's pole position time, 1 minute 22.088. Mika Häkkinen has already gone 7/10 of a second faster than that, and it looks as though Michael Schumacher is going to go faster still and throw down the gauntlet to the McLaren driver. And yes, he's done it. 1 minute 20.974. Michael Schumacher goes back into pole position, and he has got 5 laps to go as Mika Häkkinen placidly and impassively looks at the monitor with the times in front of him and thinks, I've got to go out there and do better still.
And what Häkkinen is looking at are 3 figures, the 3 section times. He's a 10th slower in the first section, 3/10 slower in the midsection, and a 10th faster than Schumacher in the last bit. So Häkkinen knows now where he's got to go out and pull something out of the bag. That was a cracking lap from Michael Schumacher, and he's still got a bit left in my view.
Now look at Rubens Barrichello. He's 3/10 out with 2 sectors completed. This could move him. This might just move him onto the front row of the grid with his Ferrari teammate. And if he does, that will be very, very bad news for McLaren to have the 2 Scarlet Ferraris ahead of him. It looks as though James, what's the news? Quickly.
Big fire in the pit lane. Nick Heidfeld's Prost has just come in. There's a big fire. It's out now, but it's right in front of the McLaren, of the Ferrari garage, right where Michael Schumacher pulls his car out when he drives out of the garage.
Thank you, James. We're looking at Heidfeld now. We're looking at his car as you see the marshal putting the fire extinguisher powder onto it. So Nick Heidfeld's Prost caught fire, as you heard from James Allen. You didn't hear from me as you watch Heidfeld walking away. The Rubens Barrichello is now in 3rd position ahead of David Coulthard. So it is Ferrari, McLaren. Here's a playback of Heidfeld stopping at the pit lane. And woof! A great burst of flame. I think it's probably just an oil fire, Martin.
Yeah, just a bit of oil burning off at the back there. There's obviously be a union loose or something like that, some kind of connector. But no big drama there, really. More of a drama for Ferrari. They've now got to find a way of getting Michael Schumacher's car in the garage and Barrichello's car in, but they'll soon fix that. A little drama, but there's another toy they made earlier for him back in the garage. We're going to take a break.
Just under 13 minutes to go of the 60-minute qualifying session for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher is still fastest, 4/10 of a second faster than Mika Häkkinen. But you remember that cloud cover that Patrick Head was talking to Jim Rosenthal about in the studio before qualifying began? Well, it appears to be appearing, if you follow me, because the track temperature has fallen from 28 degrees to 23 degrees. Good news.
Well, that onboard lap you're watching at De La Rosa's was a fine one. It's moved him up into 7th place in the Arrows. So De La Rosa, using his local knowledge and a bit of extra Spanish adrenaline, has got the Arrows up into the top 10.
Now, is Mika Häkkinen benefiting from that cloud cover and reduced track temperature? The answer is, in the first sector, he certainly was, because he's gone faster there than he has been before, albeit 1/10 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher had been. Now, I would expect Schumacher to be coming out pretty quickly. We've got 11 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the session. Schumacher has got 5 laps left. Häkkinen's gone faster than he had been in the second sector. Now, is he going to move into pole position again? No, 3/10 of a second, nearly 4/10 of a second slower than Schumacher, who I think has got something in reserve if the track stays cooler.
So Schumacher laid down the gauntlet. Mika Häkkinen could not respond. It was a reasonably tidy lap. So Häkkinen, 3.5 of a second. That's a lot. I think you find that's Coulthard about to start what's effectively his second flying lap because of that technical drama earlier on. So Coulthard now back into 4th place as Barrichello passed him. Coulthard now needing to hook one up.
Remember what I was saying about how important pole position here is in Spain. Mika Häkkinen has had pole position in the first 3 races this year. Rubens Barrichello, and that's the Peugeot engine letting go. Rubens Barrichello was pole position in Britain. Michael Schumacher has not had a pole position since the Japanese Grand Prix last year, after his amazing return after breaking his leg at Silverstone in 1999 to Malaysia, where he took pole position. And Schumacher is in pole position now with just over 10 minutes to go. Schumacher's got 5 laps, Häkkinen's got 4 laps, Rubens Barrichello is 3rd, has got 4 laps. David Coulthard is 4th and has got 5 laps. Ralf Schumacher is the top non-Ferrari or McLaren driver. Jarno Trulli, an excellent 6th for Jordan.
Well, this is not going to take pole position for Coulthard, but he may just nick back 3rd from, or possibly even 2nd from teammate Häkkinen. So Coulthard must somehow not lift the throttle through any of the last 2 corners to be on pole. That's not going to happen, I don't think. But let's see if he can get it up onto the front row, or if he can just bump that Ferrari back. And he doesn't. He's 0.06 of a second shy of bumping Barrichello out of 3rd. And again, another disappointed McLaren driver. David's got another shot, though.
As we watch Giancarlo Fisichella, 14th position in the Benetton. He's ahead of his teammate Alexander Wurz. Benetton did well earlier in the season, 2nd place in the Brazilian Grand Prix for Fisichella, but they've gone off the boil a bit recently, notwithstanding the fact that we can expect them to have improvements in their Supertech engines from Renault. Now, what's he done? Nothing.
Yeah, as Pat Simmons, the technical director of Benetton, said they've got 3 bogey circuits. They were the same last year, and they're all on the bounce, and they're at the 3rd of the 3 of them now here in Barcelona. They're expecting to be much stronger in Nürburgring. That's a bit of a curious situation, because usually your car either works or it doesn't work, but they seem to have tracks they prefer. But Frentzen has moved up to 8th in the 2nd of the Jordans. Teammate Trulli is 6th, so that's bumped De La Rosa and Verstappen, the 2 Arrows drivers, now just filling out the top 10 in 9th and 10th. So Eddie Irvine 12th, Johnny Herbert, Jenson Button rather 14th, and Johnny Herbert 15th. Coulthard is only 4th at the moment, so Brits not having a good day here, Murray.
No, they're not. 8 minutes to go, and it's looking pretty fraught as far as McLaren are concerned, although we all know from having seen it many, many times in the past that Mika Häkkinen, like the late Ayrton Senna, has this incredible ability to dig deep and produce a lap quicker than anybody else has done, right at the last knockings of the qualifying session, and that is 8 minutes away.
Well, I saw Häkkinen make a mistake going into 11, and the back end stepped out a bit. We know Michael sort of missed the apex in turn 1 on his best lap, but then had a super lap towards the end. I think Michael's got every bit as much left in his pocket, which is a 10th or 2 tenths, as Mika Häkkinen has, and I would think Michael really must be sitting there quite confidently at the moment, expecting to start this race on pole position, but they've all got a run left. All the key players. The only person who's now finished his runs is Frentzen down in 8th place. Jordan again disappointing slightly here, but there's 7 minutes and 15 seconds remaining.
Yeah, very disappointing for Frentzen. Less disappointing for Trulli, his teammate, who is in 6th position on the 3rd row of the grid. But I think it's going to go a bit quiet for the moment now. There'll be a great outpouring of motor cars onto the track with about 5 minutes to go. That's in just under 2 minutes' time. Eddie Irvine out on the track trying to improve on 12th position for Jaguar. His teammate Johnny Herbert is in 13th position. All good so far. Half a second off the pace in the first sector. Now, in order to improve his position by 3 places, Eddie's only got to go 0.2 of a second faster, and he'd be in the top 10.
Now, I saw the Supremos of the Jaguar team saying that they're missing not having their own wind tunnel, which I think is absolutely correct. They are at a disadvantage over many of the teams, but they've got the same wind tunnel facilities that Stewart had last year. And were winning a race and very, very much at the sharp end in many of the Grand Prix. So I fear their problems are not only not enough time in a wind tunnel at the moment.
Well, they're doing a lot to put the management structure right. More of that in just a moment. Let's see how Eddie Irvine has done as he crosses the line, and he improves to 10th position. So there's a Jaguar in the top 10. Johnny Herbert is 15th. And Neil Ressler, the American who has got such an influential position in the Ford empire, announced yesterday that he's taking over Supremo role at Jaguar with an enormous amount of support from Ford and from people like Wolfgang Reitzler, the head man of Jaguar, Jonathan Browning, who's the managing director, and Richard Parry Thomas, who's their great man on handling. So there's all the brains and management ability in the world behind Jaguar, but it's a long, long climb to the top. How's Ralf Schumacher doing? Well, he is in 5th position, and we're looking at Ricardo Zonta in the BAR down at 17th place in comparison with his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 world champion, 10 places ahead of him in 7th position on the grid.
Never quite understand the Zonta situation. He came with highly recommended, really, didn't he? And he just seems, I've said before, it's just a half a step behind the car. Often he seems to be not quite in the right place on the racetrack. Lots of innuendo behind the scenes that Villeneuve, being the main man there and actively involved in the team, that Zonta is artificially kept back. I can't substantiate that. But certainly Zonta never seems to quite shine compared to what we were expecting from him.
No, in his own words, he doesn't do well enough in qualifying. He's the Formula 3000 champion of the past, and he's the Mercedes-Benz GT champion, so he's got all the qualifications in the world. But doing well in lesser formulae, as we remember with Jan Magnussen, doesn't mean to say that you're going to do well in Formula 1. And he, one must say, hasn't done well in Formula 1 thus far. We've got 4 minutes to go. We're watching Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar, unhappy with his lap. He's down in 15th position. Things are not going well for Herbert this season, very sadly. Stewart last year, Jaguar this year, although of course he won the European Grand Prix for Stewart last year. Down into the last 3.5 minutes as we look at Jacques Villeneuve going for it. He's on his last lap now. He's on his 12th lap out of the 12 he's allowed. 0.6 of a second. He could move up into round about 6th position with a great deal of luck. Into the last corner, turn 13 coming up shortly as he goes over the grid, and as he made it, yes, an excellent 6th position. He displaces Jarno Trulli, hides Harold Frentzen and De La Rosa to 6th position. So the first 3 rows with 3 minutes to go and a lot of action still to come. Schumacher and Hakkinen with 0.365 of a second separating them. Row 2, Barrichello and Coulthard, 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris on the front 2 rows. Ralf Schumacher is 5th, Villeneuve is 6th, James Allen Hughes.
Here we go, guys, it's the final push. Both the 2 McLarens are about to come out at the same time. They're a little bit off colour today, they know that. They've been fine-tuning the cars. Adrian Newey has been working very, very hard. David Coulthard about to go out behind me. If they're aware of history, they'll know two things about this Barcelona circuit. The first one is that you tend to finish the race in the position you qualify in. And the second thing is that every time we've been here for 9 years, the winner has gone on to be the world champion. That's how significant this next few minutes is going to be.
And both the Ferraris go out together. Let's hope that they get a breathing space between them. We don't want contact there.
Just to remind you, those red lights are the new regulation to signify the pit lane limiter is on. So 2 Ferraris line astern. There's a Sauber between them, and then I think you'll see 2 McLarens line astern appearing in the scene in the background.
Led by, and the 2 McLarens, as you rightly say, Martin, with Mika Häkkinen leading his teammate David Coulthard, and Michael Schumacher leading his teammate Rubens Barrichello. So the top 4 with 1.5 minutes to go before the flag goes out. But as I've said before, provided you have started a lap before you reach the checkered flag, you are allowed to complete it. So we could well see pole position being established 61 minutes or so after the start of the session, notwithstanding the fact that it's a 60-minute session.
Well, remember, Michael Schumacher missed his slot in Silverstone for this particular little activity of playing poker with the checkered flag. It was a strange situation there because the start and the finish line are in different places. We haven't got that situation here, and I think they're all going to make it just fine. De La Rosa goes up to 9th, Jenson Button 11th, Button up to 11th, but we're now watching the 4 main men on the front of the grid.
And Jenson Button is not going to improve on that 11th position because he's done his 12 laps. It's the 4 men at the front that we're concerned with as the Jenson on his rundown lap passes the arrows.
Yes, Jenson and De La Rosa are about to find 4 very active cars approaching them at some point on this slow down lap of this. They're on the way, Murray.
Here is Schumacher, here is Barrichello. Schumacher out of turn 2 into turn 3. We'll know the answer as he comes through the end of the first sector, compare his time with his own previous fastest time, and it is just 1/10 of a second off. He can recover that. Rubens Barrichello is quicker still. Rubens Barrichello is 1/10 of a second faster than Michael Schumacher was in that sector. And Mika Häkkinen has yet to go through. David Coulthard is the same time in the first sector as Michael Schumacher. It's tremendously tough, tense stuff this, but it could be that Rubens Barrichello is going to take pole position for the second race in succession, and that would be sensational. But what about Schumacher now? He's still 1/10 of a second off, and Rubens Barrichello now has lost half a second compared with his teammate.
Coulthard too. Coulthard, no, there's not enough grip in the track. They've missed the best of the track. I don't think there's going to be a lot of change at the sharp end, but Michael Schumacher is somewhere there. Häkkinen though, Häkkinen quick in the middle section now. Obviously not the track. The other guys must have made a mistake. Häkkinen on a 32-second mid-sector. Schumacher didn't change. What's Häkkinen going to do? He's some 20-odd seconds to go yet before Häkkinen crosses the line. Barrichello doesn't do it. Coulthard doesn't do it. What can Mika Häkkinen do? Let's look out for him. I'm going to have to look out of the window. I can't see. Here he comes.
Over the line. And Mika Häkkinen stays in second position, 7/100ths of a second slower than Michael Schumacher. Well, that's how close it is, and for the first time this year, we have Michael Schumacher in pole position. It's the second time in 5 races, the second time in the last 2 races, the Ferrari have been in pole position. Very good news for them in Spain, because last year, Häkkinen from pole position and David Coulthard from the front row just cleared off and won the race. So, Schumacher, Häkkinen, Barrichello, Coulthard, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens share the 2 front rows. Ralf Schumacher, a quite magnificent 5th fastest in the Williams BMW ahead of Jacques Villeneuve's BAR. 1 second, less than 1 second covers the top 6. Jarno Trulli is 7th in the Jordan and his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 8th. Pedro de la Rosa is 9th. Eddie Irvine and Jenson Button 10th and 11th.
Johnny Herbert is 15th. So 1st and 3rd on the grid for the 2 Ferraris. That's the clean side of the grid. And the 2 McLarens on the dirty side, even if it's the inside when they get down there. It's a long, long run to the first corner. One of the longest in the world. Probably only Monza has a longer run down to turn 1. So perfect situation in many ways for the Ferrari team on the left-hand side of the grid.
And Ferrari, of course, in a very strong position in both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. Michael Schumacher leading David Coulthard by 20 points in the Drivers' Championship. And Ferrari 17 points ahead of McLaren. McLaren tomorrow must get ideally a first and a second place. 16 points maximum, dramatically to improve their position in the two championships. And Michael Schumacher very happy, pole position for tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix.
Welcome to the top 3 qualifiers for the 2000 Spanish Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen and Rubens Barrichello. Michael, that's your first pole of the year on what is traditionally a McLaren track. How satisfying is this moment?
Well, it is obviously satisfying, but honestly, if you look back, since the beginning of the season, we always had the opportunity, but we didn't use our opportunity. As you see, things are so close. It's just, if you just get it perfectly right, you can do it. If you just do a little mistake, or if you have some flex and you cannot do your laps, then obviously you don't do it. But, you know, pole position is nice, but on the other side, the race counts, and that's why I just want to wait till tomorrow.
Michael, you mentioned the word perfect there. Given the amount of testing you do around here, was that lap as close to perfect as you can get?
Unfortunately, with this condition we see here, with the wind, you always feel, well, you could have improved here and there a little bit. Whether you actually do or not, it's another question mark, but it was as good as it probably could have been for the circumstance.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Mika, you seem to have been fighting the car a lot in the practice sessions up until now, but you seem to have solved the problems in qualifying. Does the car deserve to be on pole position?
Yes, basically yes. I think we did not get, and I did not get 100% clear run in the whole session until the last run, really. So I didn't really get the opportunity to maximize it.
Okay, thank you, Mika. And Rubens, it seemed that you could have caught Mika on your last run there, but you lost it in the second sector. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, as Michael said, I think it was quite windy and it was unpredictable sometimes when you were out there. So in a way, I thought the car was better this morning with the setup it was than this afternoon. Not that we changed that much, but I didn't feel the car as good as this afternoon. So in a way, you know, it's good to be in the top 3, but I'm disappointed not to be on the first row, because I think it should have been better.
Are the handling problems of Silverstone now behind you?
We still have some kind of a problem. This morning, still my steering wheel was still affected, and it's still funny why it happens. But I think the team is getting on the top of it, because they know what we need for the future. Basically, if we do a change, we need to check quite often what's going on.
Thank you, Rubens. Michael, for the race tomorrow, how important is the start going to be? Imola and Silverstone, you made some bad getaways. Is it all going to happen in the start tomorrow?
Afterwards, you always know more. Generally, if you do a good start and you can lead the race and you can plan your tactics from the leading position, it's always slightly easier than being in the challenging position. But we have proven that we can win even from behind. So it's not the most necessary, but it helps.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now can we have a word from each of you in your own languages, please, starting with Michael.
Michael Schumacher has put a Ferrari on pole in Spain. The first time that's happened since Niki Lauda 25 years ago. And a real shock, Tony, because Ferrari always tell us if there's one place they hate, it's the Catalonian circuit.
Apart from anything else, they don't normally test here with the rest. The first time they came here with the 2000 F1 car was last week. Ominously, for McLaren, the Ferrari was quickest both in the wet, at the end of the week, and also in the dry session. Now this, we're seeing, is a shift in the balance of power. If they can get it right here at this very technical track, which has seen McLaren dominance over the last couple of years, means Ferrari have done a great job on this car, which we already know. Big test here, though.
Schumacher going his own way, choosing those different tyres, and well, has he got it right and has everybody else got it wrong?
Well, I mean, the race will play that one out, but I mean, he certainly always thinks of the different options, but it's just great to watch him going around here, and especially he'll be feeling every lap, confirming that this is the best Ferrari that he's ever driven, and it's his demeanour as well. The guy has got a spring in his step. He's going around smiling, running up and down the pit lane, talking to everybody. You know, like this is his year, and this is a crucial race.
Right, let's see what Ferrari have made of their performance. Let's have a word with Ross Brawn, the Ferrari technical director. Here he is then chatting to James Allen.
Ross, second Ferrari pole of the season, the first for Michael, and you felt it was always going to come here.
Yeah, we had a very good test, and we were always a bit unsure where McLaren were, because the tendency is perhaps to run more fuel than we do sometimes, so we were a bit anxious about that. But today everyone's down on the same fuel level, so we're pretty happy.
You're surprised they looked a bit off colour today, the Maccas, didn't they?
A little bit, but I mean, the last few races, from the start of the season, we've been very close. And I think people were saying they had a performance advantage at the beginning. I'm not sure that was the case. Silverstone, if we'd had a clean race, would have been much closer than you saw. So I think it's where we expected.
The race winner here every time at Barcelona has gone on to be world champion. That's an tempting prospect.
Well, I think we'll try and do that either way.
Yeah, we'll see about that. What about those off-colour Maccas, Coulthard in particular?
Well, it may be of no consequence whatsoever, but the fact that they had a fuel feed problem with his car and then they eventually fixed it, and you can see here a lot of chat, Ron Dennis looking very concerned there, he's speaking about, it could be something to do with the simplified electronics. They now mean that the engine and the way it runs, it's much simpler almost than a road car in terms of the electronic control of the engine. It would, some engineers say, be easier almost to run carburettors than with the current simplified system, which of course came in at the British Grand Prix. That may have been a consequence, it may not, but they are not on the ball as they were, and I agree with Martin that Hakkinen was definitely a little bit lacklustre.
A word about Williams. We had Patrick Head here right at the start of the show, and Jenson Button has done pretty well. So has Ralf Schumacher. Perhaps we should give him more credit than we do.
Ralf Schumacher, I think he turned it around a couple of years ago when he got that 6th place for Jordan at the British Grand Prix, and he's grown in stature and in strength. I think he's an incredibly good driver, good technical driver, so quick and so brave. The other thing is we saw at the British Grand Prix, and we might see here, he takes no prisoners, and that includes his brother as well.
Absolutely. Tony Jardine, thank you very much indeed. Let me just remind you of our coverage of the Spanish Grand Prix tomorrow. As always, we're with you with the build-up from 12:15 tomorrow. Highlights, reaction, comment and analysis at 11:30. And on ITV2, we repeat that highlights programme 7 o'clock on Monday night. And there we are then, the first pole of the year for Michael Schumacher and his Ferrari. You know, that combination won here in the wet back in '96. Rain predicted for this part of Spain tomorrow. See you for the race. Bye-bye.